Oh my gosh, Bailey, you have the best stats. Oh my gosh, Bailey, how do you look up the best stats? Oh my gosh, Bailey, you have such a nice haircut and also good opinions about baseball.
Hopefully by now you've seen Baseball Bits, which is the main series I run on my main channel, Foolish Baseball, and throughout that series you've seen a lot of stats that look like they'd require some sort of coding, computer genius know-how. Okay, the best hitter in MLB history is Jeff Mathis, or like a carefully manicured Excel database to look up. Rich Hill! I'm gonna let you in on a little secret here.
I don't know how to do any of that.
Instead, I use tools that are easy to use and readily available to the public, like Stathead. So I've partnered up with Sports Reference, of course the people behind Baseball Reference, to review Stathead, which is their paid stat research tool. So just to be very upfront, they are paying me money to make this video. This is a sponsored video. However, they're not going to editorialize the review. I'm free to say whatever I want about Stathead, and I'll be very honest about who I think could benefit from using this product and who I think doesn't really need it. So I'm going to do some demonstrations of Stathead here in just a moment, show you how it's such a valuable tool for making my videos. But before that, I want to be very clear about something. If you, the person watching out there, if you have any aspiration to create baseball content, whether that's start a YouTube channel, are you going to do a blog, are you going to do a Twitter account where you post stats, you need it. You need this product. I'm not even going to sell it to you. I'm just telling you, like, it's ubiquitous in the industry. People who work in baseball have it. You need it. Now, the question for the good people of Sports Reference, as far as getting into this sort of influencer marketing, gross, is can they sell Stathead to, well, stat heads, lowercase, without those aspirations, the people who don't necessarily want to have a career in baseball content creation, but are just kind of curious. If at any point in this video you decide, I've got to have it, I've got to have Stathead, go down to my link in the description and use code FOOLISH at checkout. You will get $20 off your 1-year subscription. So this is the Stathead main page, and you can see just a bunch of finders. These are basically like different search engines to query different sorts of stats. So we're going to do a demonstration of a lot of these. There's season finders, game finders, split finders, streak finders, span finders. I'm going to kind of show you what that means and how they can all be used. We'll get started here with a season finder. So this is the best team ERA plus since integration. I tweeted this out on July 11th, so I'm sure the number for the 2022 Dodgers has changed a bit, but it still stands that since integration, the 3 best pitching staffs by ERA plus have been the 2020 Dodgers, the 2022 Dodgers, and 2021 Dodgers. So we're going to look that up and just show you how you would find that sort of stat. So we're here in the team pitching season finder to find out which teams have the best ERA plus since integration. ERA plus is a era adjusted, park adjusted stat where 100 is average. We're looking in the integration era, so we can go ahead and just click this as a shortcut. Here on the left is where you have your search criteria, search parameters. Here on the right is where the results will show up. So looking for the seasons between 1947 and 2022, we can sort by ERA plus. And one thing I like to do if I'm in the integration era is just make sure we're dealing only with the American League and National League. As you can see, Baseball Reference has access to Negro League stats as well as other major leagues like the Federal League, the American Association, but right now we're AL, NL only just to keep things simple. So here we are. What are the best pitching staffs since integration? Well, here you have it. It's the 2020 Dodgers still leading the way, albeit in a 60-game season, but they have a 146 ERA plus. 2022 Dodgers, the current year Dodgers, 139. Same for 2021. And you have the 2017 Cleveland team that I just talked about in one of my most recent videos. 2018 Astros, 2016 Cubs, some really good teams. 1954 Cleveland, 1954 Giants. So just a quick glance, these are some of your best pitching staffs in MLB history. And we have Stathead to thank for allowing us to see it so easily. So here's another one from a tweet I did, and then I promise we'll get into some of the baseball bit stuff. But Sandy Alcantara has more 8-inning or more starts this year than any team, other than the Marlins, of course. So Sandy Alcantara, of course, front runner in the National League for the Cy Young Award, and this is a big reason why he just pitches so deep into the games in an era where pitchers don't really do that anymore. So we're here on the player pitching game stats finder. I know, it just rolls right off the tongue, doesn't it? But Still pretty clear what we're talking about here. We're talking about pitchers. We're talking about individual games, not seasons, individual games. Specifically looking for games in which a pitcher threw 8 or more innings in the year 2022. And if we want to be extra safe here, we can come down here to player filters and look only at the pitcher's role starter. So just in case by any chance there has been a reliever who had 8 or more innings in a relief outing, they'll be excluded from this search. I remember Kent Emanuel did that. Maybe that was a few years ago, but doubt it's happened this year. But let's just be sure, leave it at starting pitchers. And if we leave it at the default here, which is find single games matching criteria, we're just going to get a list of games in which a starting pitcher threw 8 or more innings. And we can sort by strikeouts. We can sort by innings pitched. We can sort by the game date. Here are the most recent pitchers to do that. But if we wanted to find out how many games each pitcher has where they've done that, you could sort by name and you could say, oh, looks like Logan Webb has 1, 2, 3. Looks like Justin Verlander and Framber Valdez also 1, 2, 3. But you can make it a lot easier on yourself because if you go back here, you can actually find players with most games in a season matching the criteria. So now we're getting how many games each pitcher had, with 8 or more innings. And as you can see here, Sandy Alcantara, comfortable lead. More than twice as many as second place. Aaron Nola has 4. Sandy Alcantara has 9. And if we come over here to games list, we can still see, hey, these are all the games where Sandy Alcantara threw 8 or more innings. Sort by innings, sort by hits allowed, sort by earned runs, whatever. So we know Sandy Alcantara has thrown 9 games of 8 or more innings thanks to this finder. Of course, the tweet is comparing Sandy Alcantara to entire teams. So how do we find out the teams? Very simple. All we got to do is go from over here to right here. Find teams with most player games matching the criteria. So very simple search. Now we'll just sort by which team. And as you can see, the Miami Marlins lead the way. They have 10. 9 of those we know are from Alcantara. We can actually go over here to games list and see who else did it. Pablo Lopez did it against the San Diego Padres. And as you can see, the team that actually is second is the Houston Astros with 7. So really, once again, Sandy Alcantara, more 8-inning starts than any team in Major League Baseball. And as you can see, only 25 teams have done it. So that means 5 teams haven't even had a starter go 8 innings this year. That's really fascinating and a good example of how Stathead can reveal a player's greatness. One of my favorite stats I've found for any baseball bids came in last year's episode called The Year of Ohtani, which was a review of Ohtani's 2021 MVP campaign, where I revealed that Ohtani was the best hitter and best starting pitcher in high leverage that year. How did I find that? So we're just going to do a demonstration of the batting search. We're going to prove Ohtani was the best hitter in high leverage by OPS in 2021. And we're looking at a split finder for this. So player batting splits. And this is a really powerful subset of the Stathead tool set. We're going to search for 2021, but look at all the different types of splits you can search. You can search home or away, first or second half, months, game outcome for team, number of outs in the inning, all the bases occupied type stuff. It's pretty incredible, but we're going to do by leverage, specifically high leverage. And we're going to look for players that had at least 50 plate appearances in high leverage in 2021. We're going to make sure we are sorting by OPS. And there we go. Click search. Who's going to lead the way? Shohei Ohtani. There you have it, people. I'm not making these stats up, okay? I actually looked them up. It's true. I'm not lying to you. So we've done a season finder. We've done a game finder. We've done a split finder. Let's do a streak finder. And the streak finder is exactly what it sounds like. No need to get intimidated. And we're going to look at a player batting streak. I'm curious about hit streaks because, again, that's probably the most common thing we look at. As you can see here, Trey Turner had the longest hit streak, 26 games so far in 2022. I'd be interested in games in which a player had at least 1 hit, but we can get a little more specific. Let's go after Joe DiMaggio's famous 56-game hitting streak. So we're going to go from 1942 to the present day, and let's see what the best Yankees hitting streaks have been since Joe DiMaggio, Joltin' Joe, 56 games. What are the best hitting streaks done by a Yankee? Let's find out. And here's your results. Joe Gordon in 1942 leading the way with a 29-game hitting streak. Then you have a Derek Jeter 25-gamer, Don Mattingly 24, that was in 1986. Robinson Cano, Alex Rodriguez. There you go. Those are your top Yankee hitting streaks since Joe DiMaggio in 1941. All right, one last search here, which will be using the Span Finder. So in my most recent episode of Baseball Bits, I gave you a very Tim Kurkjian-y stat, which was basically that Jose Ramirez had 8 homers and 3 strikeouts in an 18-game stretch throughout Cleveland's win streak. He was only the third hitter to do that since 2010, following Adrian Beltre and Albert Pujols. How would I find that? So I'm going to go in here to the Span Finder, go to a player batting span. We're going to make sure we are searching from 2010 onwards, and we're just going to go search for spans of 18 games in which a hitter had 8 or more home runs and 3 or fewer strikeouts. And that's pretty much how it goes. Let's see what happens. Now, one thing I will say with the Span Finder is that it does take a while. Most of the other searches I've done, they come up in a few seconds. This one is Baseball Reference Notes, can take up to 1 to 2 minutes to complete. Alrighty, our search is complete, and hell, what do you know? Only names that come up, Adrian Beltre, Albert Pujols, and J-Ram himself. Again, not making this stuff up, not lying to you. All right, now I'm going to do some general likes and dislikes for Stathead. One thing I really like about Stathead is that features keep getting added. So you'll subscribe to this product and then new things will kind of trickle in throughout the year. And even if it gets a little bit stale for you at times, they'll release a new feature, a new type of search that kind of reels you back in. The Streak/Span Finder, which we just had a lot of fun with, those are relatively new. Those were not there when I was first a user of Stathead. My biggest like for Stathead is that it is relatively easy to start, but then you can get pretty deep with it as you become more experienced and more comfortable with the product. You know, a really simple search can reveal some really interesting baseball stats, and so that's good if you're getting started. You can still make some really awesome discoveries, but then as you get more comfortable and you start to do more complicated searches, you can really unleash the full power of Stathead. Third plus for me is that I've always really liked the layout and the look of Baseball Reference, and people might think it's too old-fashioned looking, but to me, I look at it and I see comfort, I see efficiency. I think there's so many websites out there where my biggest gripe is that there just isn't enough information on my screen at once. With Stathead, with Baseball Reference, I never have that problem. I always dig the aesthetics of what they do, even if it is kind of a throwback. So what do I dislike? Well, I dislike that $80 per year price point. I actually think it's a little steep. And in Sports Reference's defense, there's some ways around that. If you use code FOOLISH at checkout, you can get $20 off your first year. You can do a free trial. You can go month by month at $8 a month. But eventually, if you stick with this product long enough, you will pay $80 a year for it. And I think that's a bit steep if they're trying to sell it to just hobbyists rather than professionals in the baseball industry. Another dislike, Span Finder is slow, but again, that one's understandable considering what is being asked of it. You know, it's really hard to search for any sort of 10-game span, any sort of 20-game span throughout Major League Baseball history. I mean, we're talking about 20,000 plus players here, so understandable, but the Span Finder, it is slow, and that can be kind of a bummer because it's maybe the coolest tool to use right now. I also have something that isn't really a positive or a negative in my mind, but it is a thing to know. And that thing to know is when you buy Stathead, you are living in the world of Baseball Reference type stats. You're going to use OPS Plus instead of WRC Plus. Everything's going to be in Baseball Reference WAR instead of Fangraphs WAR or WARP. And you're going to be using defensive runs saved rather than StatCast outs above average. This isn't really a good thing or a bad thing in my mind, but it is something to keep in mind. So who needs Stathead? Who should go out there and buy Stathead right now? Number one, easy. Aspiring content creators. I know I said it before, but it's like I'm not even really making this video for you. Like you should just have it. What are you doing? If you have any dreams of being a baseball YouTuber, doing some baseball research, being a baseball writer, even having a Twitter account where you post stats and you have a cool following, just get this, man. Just get this, play around with it. What are you doing here? The second group is a little bit more vague, but I think a good way of summing it up is just people who are curious, people who have a natural curiosity about baseball stats, people who have questions, and not just questions that you can easily Google, like who has the most career home runs. I'm talking about questions like who has the most career home runs since integration among second basemen between ages 25 and 29. By the way, it's Alfonso Soriano. I looked it up with Stathead. Third group I can give a recommendation to would be students / the military, because they get a discount. They get 50% off, so that $80, which I was concerned about from a price, becomes much more manageable. So I would say students, military, definitely take advantage of this deal. So who doesn't need Stathead? I would say Stathead isn't super useful for fans who only care about the current year. I think a lot of the joy for me from Stathead is derived from comparing current players to former players. So if you don't really have an interest in the past, baseball history, whether that's 10 years or 100 years ago, I don't think you need Stathead to give you info on the current season. Fangraphs has great free tools for that. You don't need it for StatCast stuff. Baseball Savant has that. Second group of people who I don't think should buy Stathead, these are people who aren't just intrigued by the possibilities of what I've just showed them throughout my demonstration of the product. If you have made it through this video and you can't really think of at least one thing you'd like to look up on Stathead, might not be for you. Third group of people who I think shouldn't buy Stathead is going to be people who only use their smartphones. And Sports Reference, they have done a lot to make Stathead work on mobile. And you gotta give them credit. It does work. It does work on mobile. You can do these searches on mobile. However, for me personally, this is a tool most effectively used on a laptop or a desktop computer. If you're thinking, oh, I'm gonna take this to the sports bar and impress all my buddies, don't be too surprised if the process of making a complicated search takes a while on that rectangle you keep in your pocket. So I'm gonna say, definitely a no for people who are only going to use it on their smartphone. There you have it. Stathead is a big part of what I do, and I'm glad I could partner up with Sports Reference to share it with you. Go out there, use code FOOLISH at checkout for $20 off a 1-year subscription, get Stathead, use it to make videos that are better than mine, steal my audience, leave my career broken, leave me destitute. Maybe don't do that part.